Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm going to be your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers, and joining me to talk about the 2024 NFL Draft prospect, Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia. As always, Mr. Football, Vincent Turner. How you doing this afternoon, Vincent?
Hey, how you doing today, Mr. Logan Landers?
I am doing tremendous, sir. Ready to talk about this top-tier offensive tackle talent in Amarius Mims. But before we get started, though, guys, if you enjoy the episode, give us a like, follow, share, and subscribe on our social media platforms, Facebook and YouTube, the main hubs over there. And also check out our podcast, available each and every single week on the Believe Podcast Network, which is a network where you can find all of our shows on all of your various podcast streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, just to name a few. Well, let's get right into it, Vincent. Let's give our thoughts on Mr. Amarius Mims. I'll start things off. I think this young man is super talented. Obviously, the one thing you look at with this guy is he doesn't have a lot of experience, Vincent, because really this past year, 2023, was the only time he's seen a decent bit of action. He was hurt. He had 6 starts in total, missed the bowl game against Florida State due to an injury, and in 2022 didn't see the field a whole lot, but was in 14 to 15 games as a reserve offensive tackle. I like this guy, though. It's just unfortunate he has not seen the field. But when you look at Amarius Mims, Vincent, this guy is an absolute tank. 6'7", 340. He's a junior. He's a young guy too. He's a junior. He's got some obviously championship pedigree out there at UGA, and he is a top tier talent. It's just we haven't seen a whole lot of him. That's the only unfortunate part. But what we have seen, though, what I like about him, he's got a tremendous frame, great mass, great length. As I mentioned, 6'7", 340, not skipping any meals, and that's a lean 342. He's not out there. You can see on the screen that is a super lean. A lot of chicken, a lot of broccoli diet right there for that young man. Just eats a lot of it. High energy for a guy that big. Gotta love it. He looks like a tight end out there with how he can move in the open space. He's got good rotation. He can move his ankles, his feet with the best of them. He's great at having agility, good lateral movements. He can also stunt pass rushes. That's his bread and butter right there, Vincent. He is an elite pass rush defender right there. He will stop those guys dead in their tracks. Great at pass protection. Obviously solid in the run game as well. But obviously at Georgia, they go very much pass heavy. And I think he is a tremendous talent. He's got a good base. I think that unfortunately, though, since he has not played a whole lot at Georgia, he could slip in some draft boards. But overall, man, when you look at just the pedigree that he's got, the raw talent, and just how well he could help a team out, I mean, there's a lot of people say he could go in the first round, but I don't know about you, Vince. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Amarius Mims coming out of Georgia? I love the young man personally.
When I think about Mr. Mims, I think about power. Now, you said he hasn't played a lot of football at Georgia, but the guy was a former 5-star recruit.
Yes,
He's
sir.
6'7", 340 pounds. But when I say power, I think heavy metal. I think of Guns N' Roses. I think Alice in Chains. And the reason I say that, when he was on the field, he was dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Georgia Tech film. Look at the University of Tennessee film this year. Look at Ole Miss film. All big-time wins this year in a very convincing way. And Amarius Mims was that guy on the offensive line. But what really tells me about the upside he got, go back to last year, college football semifinals against Ohio State. He dominated Zach Harrison. Mr. Logan, where is Zach Harrison right now?
Where is he at, Vincent? Where is Mr. Harrison at?
He playing with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes, he is.
And he dominated him in that football game. And he dominated the defensive tackle, Mr. Michael Hall Jr., who's right now tearing it up at the Senior Bowl. And Mr. Mims, go back and look at the game film, people. He dominated both of them. Then when you look at the skill set, and look at all the great left tackles that's played in this game, he got a little bit of Art Shell in him. You should know about him, Mr. Landers. Art Shell is an Oakland Raider Hall of Famer.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He got a little bit of right field right out of Fort Valley State, another Hall of Famer. Then he got a little bit of Joe Jacoby, who played with the Washington Redskins. He got a little bit of Doug France that played with the LA Rams. He got a little bit of Leon Gray, Jackson State University, by way of the Houston Oilers. And then when you look at the skill set, now, Mr. Mims, a lot of people saying in the draft process he hadn't played a lot of football, but look at that wingspan, 6'7", 340 pounds, that wingspan of a 7'1" guy, Akeem Olajuwon, Mr. Mims, when it's all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a long NFL career. We're going to be mentioning him like we did with Jonathan Ogden when he came out of UCLA and Orlando Pace that came out of Ohio State. This gentleman might be the best left tackle that's ever played in Georgia. Don't buy into the fact he hasn't played a lot of football. When he got on the field against high-level competition, he was on Broadway, neon lights, George Benson.
Yes, sir. Well said, Mr. Turner. And if I had to have 2 words to describe Mr. Mims, late bloomer, a guy who is kind of going under the radar. And like you said, a lot of people are going at him saying, oh, he hasn't played a whole lot of games. We're just stating the facts. But like you said, if you look at the game film, if you look at what he's done against high-level competition, as you mentioned, Ohio State, Georgia Tech, who's had a good season, and all those SEC opponents that Georgia faces off against each and every single week for the most part, he comes to play, like I mentioned, with that high energy he got, that lean frame, and that amazing wingspan, as you mentioned. He's hard to stop. And I think that whoever drafts him in the upcoming 2024 draft is going to get a guy who's a hard worker. They're going to get a raw prospect and someone who, as you mentioned, they could shape to be their left tackle, their right tackle. He's played both positions of the future. I think this young man has a ton of talent, and I'm excited to see where he goes in the 2024 NFL draft. Mr. Turner, your final thoughts.
All I got to say about Mr. Mims, when you talk about the upside, he has the most upside of any left tackle coming into this draft. My final words about it: high energy athlete.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, guys, we want to hear your thoughts on Amarius Mims. Do you think he's going to be a first round? Do you think he might drop to the second round? We want to know in the comments on Facebook and on YouTube. Also, check us out on the Believe Podcast Network each and every single week for audio versions of each of our show. For Mr. Football, Vincent Turner, I've been your host, Logan Landers. Enjoy your weekends, everyone. Go and watch some Pro Bowl action this week. No NFL games this week, but we will talk to you guys again on another live